Welcome to this edition of Back in History. In this edition, we bring to you the story of how Nigeria was divided into what is now known as the 6 geopolitical zones. The question here is, under whose administration was Nigeria grouped into 6 geopolitical zones? The answer to this is that it was done during the military administration of General Sani Abacha. Abacha was the 7th military head of state of Nigeria. He ruled the country from 1993 to 1998. For many years, Nigeria was basically grouped into two, the North and the South. In this grouping, a few powerful states and persons in the North dominated the subgroups in the region and basically appropriated many federal benefits to themselves. In the South, the same thing happened, with some ethnic groups exercising dominance over the others to the detriment of the interest of the subgroups and ethnic nationalities in the region. The idea then arose to group the country equally into geopolitical zones where the interest of the various groups and ethnic nationalities were to be taken into consideration and protected at all times. It is on record that this idea of the 6 geopolitical zones was first conceived by Dr. Alex Ekwueme. Ekwueme served as Nigeria's vice president from 1st October 1979 to 31st December 1983, when the government of President Shehu Shagari was overthrown in a military coup that saw to the emergence of Major General Muhammadu Buhari as military head of state of Nigeria. Shagari was arrested by the military government and kept under house arrest. Dr. Ekwueme was also arrested, but he was detained in several locations and later detained in the Kirikiri Maximum Prison, Lagos. It is reported that the idea of grouping states of Nigeria into 6 geopolitical zones was conceived by Dr. Alex Ekwueme during the period of his detention in the Kirikiri Maximum Prison. Ekwueme was of the opinion that the grouping of the country into 6 geopolitical zones will address perennial imbalances in the areas of politics and other development indices in the country. But Dr. Ekwueme did not have the opportunity of presenting his idea to the government for consideration and possible implementation, owing to his long incarceration in prison custody. But it is also reported that Ekwueme used the detention period to discuss the idea more and more with the VIPs that were detained with him in the Kirikiri Maximum Prison. When General Sani Abacha took over the reins of government as the 7th military head of state of Nigeria in 1993, there were many issues for him to battle with in the country, principal of which was the annulment of the June 12 election. The issue of perennial imbalances in the country still persisted at the time. Abacha then constituted what he described as the National Constitutional Conference Commission on June 27, 1993. The mandate of this commission was to organize a conference to, unquote, resolve political imbalances in the country. Several persons numbering 273 were selected from all over the country to participate at the deliberations at the conference. Dr. Alex Ekwueme was one of the participants. This opportunity presented a perfect timing for Dr. Ekwueme to push his idea of the 6 geopolitical zones for the country. Top on the agenda of the conference was the issue of power sharing and power rotation. This is where Dr. Ekwueme made a case for the grouping of states into 6 geopolitical zones for equitable rotation of power in the country. The argument was carefully made by him, but same was rejected by several persons at the conference who were of the position that the status quo of north and south divides of the country should remain. In the end, the conference did not adopt the proposal for the 6 geopolitical zones. But Ekweme's proposal was widely publicized and explained for all to understand. And though the conference rejected the proposal, General Sani Abacha was keenly interested in it. Taking from Ekweme's idea, Abacha divided the country into 6 geopolitical zones. He divided the north into 3 zones, namely northeast, northwest, and north central. The south was also divided into 3, namely southeast, southwest, and south-south. The northeast zone has the following states: Borno, Gombe, Adamawa, Yobe, Bauchi, and Taraba states. The northwest zone has the following states: Jigawa, Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Zamfara. The north central has the following states: Benue, Kogi, Kwara, Nasarawa, Niger, Plateau, and the Federal Capital Territory. While the northeast is made up of 6 states, the northwest is made up of 7 states. The north central is also made up of 7 states. The southeast has a total of 5 states, namely Ebonyi, Abia, Anambra, Imo, and Enugu states. The south-south, otherwise known as Niger Delta region, has a total of 6 states, namely Delta, Edo, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Cross River states, and River states. The southwest also has 6 states, namely Lagos, Osun, Oyo, Ekiti, Ogun, and Ondo states. It should be noted that these zones were not entirely created based on geopolitical locations only. Rather, states with similar ethnic groups and common political history were grouped together in the same zone. Many years after the end of the military administration of General Sani Abacha, Nigeria still retains the 6 geopolitical zones arrangement. Since the dawn of democracy in 1999 till date, the discussions around power sharing and power rotation in Nigeria is woven around the political lines. The appointment of justices of the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, for instance, is done in Nigeria today based on the geopolitical zones where the qualified persons are from. This is to avoid the concentration of justices from 1 or 2 geopolitical zones in one court to the detriment of the interest of the other geopolitical zones. Thus, the principle of federal character, as enshrined in the Constitution of Nigeria, is made applicable side by side with the geopolitical spread of the country. In the appointment of federal high court judges, regard is also given to the geopolitical zone arrangement. The same applies in the appointment of persons to occupy political offices at the federal level of the country. In the appointment of service chiefs, namely Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Naval Staff, Chief of Air Staff, etc., regard is also given to the geopolitical zones of the country. Also, in the appointment of commissioners for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, regard is also given to the geopolitical zones arrangement. The geopolitical spread is also brought into consideration in the siting of federal projects. For instance, during the administration of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, approval was given at the Federal Executive Council for the establishment of federal universities in all the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. It does appear that the grouping of states of Nigeria into geopolitical zones has been fully accepted into the socio-political lexicon and practices of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mention should, however, be made that in the last couple of years, some leaders and some administrations have blatantly ignored the basis for the grouping of the country into 6 equal geopolitical zones. A few states still have more federal appointments and representations than other states. Dr. Alex Ekweme was a well-educated and highly experienced Nigerian statesman. He attended St. John's Anglican Central School in Kulubia for his primary education and later proceeded to King's College, Lagos. He also attended the University of Washington, where he earned a bachelor's degree in architecture and city planning. He obtained his master's degree in urban planning and a PhD in architecture. He was also learned in other fields of life. He had a degree in sociology and another degree in philosophy. He also had a degree in history and another degree in law. He attended the Nigerian Law School and was called to the Nigerian bar. Ekweme's highly ingenious conception of the 6 geopolitical zones was thus not a surprise for those who knew him closely. It is believed in several quarters that if power is evenly rotated from one geopolitical zone to another, with no zone left out of the equilibrium, Nigeria would have presented itself to the Committee of Nations as a country founded on justice, equity, and fairness. Many thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel for regular notifications.